Welcome back to Politics Powered by Twitter. I'm Lee Brenner. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lee Brenner.
I'm Pamela Kirkland. Find me at PamelaXM POTUS.
And I'm Slade Somer. Get me at Slade HV.
And you can hit us all up at Politics Radio. We're joined now by Emily Miller, senior editor for opinion at the Washington Times. You can find her on Twitter at Emily Miller. Hey, Emily, it's Lee. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Lee. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, news today about the NRA meeting with Vice President Biden, along with some other gun advocacy groups and Second Amendment groups. Were you surprised at the reaction after of the NRA and the statement that it put out, in the sense that was anything surprising about the meeting? Did both sides kind of go in knowing what both were going to say?
No, I was not surprised. I mean, I was hopeful, that this would be more of a dialogue, because gun owners have not had a seat at the table, since this task force started almost a month ago now. And so right at this end, as Biden said today, they're going to be giving the results and recommendations on Tuesday. At the very end, they invite some gun owners groups in, and NRA, as you said, and NSSF, which represents the manufacturers, along with four others. But really, it was just for show. It sounds like I talked to David Keene, the president of the NRA, just a few hours ago, and he said they obviously brought us in to say, okay, we met with the NRA. He said they didn't want to listen at all to ideas on more safety for our children, more safety in general, and just wanted to go after guns and after the Second Amendment.
Well, in your conversation today with the head of the NRA, did he give a sense that when they came in, did he have a sense that there was going to be a sort of negotiation? Were they willing to talk about what the NRA could do in terms of from their side of things?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. They went in. Obviously, the NRA went in with, a lot of curiosity. This is a president who's openly said, I want the assault weapons ban brought back. He said he wants other kinds of bans. He wants high-capacity magazine bans, as they're called, which is banning any magazine that's over 10 rounds, which are less than the standard that come in guns. So they knew they were not going in with someone with an open mind. But I do think they thought perhaps they'll be willing to hear some of our ideas, or perhaps they'll be willing to, which maybe all of this has nothing to do with the guns. The guns that were used in Newtown, were stolen from his mother. The killer stole from his mother. He had handguns that are legal. There is just, there's no gun laws even being proposed now on the table that would have stopped him or would have prevented that. And, quite frankly, the facts of the matter are, as gun ownership has increased, crime has gone down. As gun possession and carry rights have increased around the country, crime has gone down. So, the NRA wanted to look at other things like violent video games and violence in the media, and possibly, putting armed guards in schools and things like that. And I guess none of those issues were allowed to be discussed, and the vice president just focused only on these gun bans.
Hey, Emily, it's Slade. You said something earlier that I wanted to get your opinion on, which is that Biden and the task force met with the NRA and the NSSF, and you said that the NSSF represents gun manufacturers. Do you still believe that the NRA represents regular gun owners, or do you think that their agenda is more in line with gun manufacturers and the gun lobby?
Oh, no, they genuinely represent they have 4 million members, and their 4 million members are regular people. I sincerely doubt the owner of Beretta or the owner of Remington belongs to NRA. I have no idea. They possibly could. I don't know. They're probably gun owners themselves, but they're two completely different things. The NSSF very openly focuses on the economic impact of gun bans. Obviously, a lot about gun safety and other things, but, they represent ammunition manufacturers and firearms manufacturers in this country, and those two industries have done fantastic in this terrible economy. They're like the exception to everything else. And, Smith & Wesson stock is up, Remington is up, everyone. And so gun sales are the highest they've ever been in this history right now. So we are just two completely different organizations with very different memberships and different objectives. And the NRA is much focused on the right of self-defense and the Second Amendment for the right to prevent government tyranny, whereas the NSSF is really focused on its members' needs for, the manufacturers and, they're obviously their shareholders.
Sure.
Do you think it's fair, though, to think that, if I mean, you said that the White House, and they were from their side were seemingly closed-minded on these issues. You know, it came after Wayne LaPierre made this statement. It seemed as if, you know, and you kind of made the point that they were going to it as well, saying it's everyone else's issue, and we are willing to talk about solutions, but that have nothing to do with guns, right? Whereas, and not that the solution is solely about guns, but wouldn't it be good to go into a dialogue on all sides, whether the entertainment industry talking about video games, the mental health community, the mental illness community, as well as the gun industry, saying maybe there's something that all of us can do of the people we're lobbying for, and it may be the case even just on the entertainment software, you know, or the entertainment industry, they're going to come in and say it has nothing to do with us. You know, it's only about the other folks. But
well, sure. I mean, obviously, every industry and every interest group doesn't want, you know, has their groups they're representing. So, you know, they're not going to walk in and give up anything voluntarily. I mean, that's any negotiation. But, you know, gun owners, I am one. You know, looking at the facts, we know that when we had the so-called assault weapons ban from 1994 to 2004, it had no effect on crime whatsoever. And in fact, when it came time to be re-upped in 2004, the FBI and law enforcement around the country told Congress we don't need it. It had no effect, and it's just difficult to enforce, and it doesn't affect crime. And so, I mean, there is just the problem, the reason, you know, we can enforce the existing laws better, things like that, and I think both the NRA and NSSF would be open to that idea, but there are no proposals that the White House has put on the table or anyone has put on the table that have ever been factually proven to reduce crime or to prevent mass killing. So it's just hard to have that argument or that debate when you know the facts of it. You know, this is what they're doing is, what the White House is doing is they're using the emotion, which is understood from what happened at Newtown and this, you know, horror of these children being shot. And they're using it to produce and push through their political agenda. It's not, none of them have ever said or proven or shown facts or talked to police or FBI or anyone to say high capacity over 10-round magazines will do anything, or, you know, closing the so-called loophole gun show will do anything. So, you know, I think that's the frustration with all these gun groups and organizations and the 100 million gun owners in this country is, you know, they say, look, I'm law-abiding, I'm careful with my weapon, I have this legally, why should I be limited? Why should my constitutional rights be taken away from me when there's no purpose for it. There's no factual reason for it.
Well, Emily, let me ask you this question. Do you honestly believe, so we saw Alex Jones and Piers Morgan on TV, and, you know, that was kind of an unfortunate interview. You know, and I hope that that's not the poster, you know, child for the pro-Second Amendment.
Well, I think he's the self-appointed. You know, I don't think
right, exactly.
I mean, none of us elected him.
Right. So what I'm trying to say is you seem very level-headed. You seem very rational, and that clearly wasn't the case the other night. My question to you is, do you, as a rational Second Amendment gun owner, believe that President Obama is coming for your guns, or do you think that the Obama administration is trying to put restrictions on weapons that there already are restrictions? I mean, you can't buy a tank, you can't buy a bazooka. Is it just more restrictions in order to decrease gun violence, or do people legitimately believe they're going to go door to door and take your guns away?
They are going to go door to door and take our guns away. Right in New York State today, Andrew Cuomo, the governor, is this close. I think it's at 98%. You know, Sheldon Silver is the head of the legislature said on a deal that he would confiscate rifles that have certain cosmetic features, which are called, as the other side calls assault weapons. And again, they're just cosmetic. Literally nothing different in the functionality of these guns. And Cuomo says we'll just confiscate them. So it is not hyperbole to say that. And Biden is also talking about using executive order and not. And Dianne Feinstein in the Senate is saying we're not going to grandfather in, which means we will make them illegal and ban them, and we will take them. That's code for that. So we're not, this side, those of us with this who exercise our Second Amendment rights are not exaggerating. I mean, they are trying to disarm. They want less people to have guns. And the reason that the Founding Fathers put the Second Amendment up there at number 2 was not about hunting, as they, as like Cuomo like to say today, you can't you don't need an assault weapon to kill a deer. It wasn't about hunting.
But in that Second Amendment, Emily, in that Second Amendment, it does also talk about a well-regulated militia. Now, we don't have militias anymore. They were talking about muskets, and, there is... you couldn't really say that gun ownership is at this point well regulated. So I guess my question to you is, do you think that we should be as strict on the Second Amendment as we are on, we are less strict about amendments in terms of privacy, in terms of First Amendment. There is no such thing as absolute anymore. Do you think that we should be absolute about the Second Amendment? Go ahead.
Let me answer two things. 2 points. First of all, you're mixing up two parts of the Second Amendment, and I would just recommend to you or your listeners to read the Supreme Court's decision in the Heller case. It was a landmark decision in 2008, said that everyone has the right to bear arms, and it explained the Second Amendment. There's a colon in between the section on the militia, between the part of our right to keep and bear arms. So it is two separate concepts, so just so you understand that. Secondly, there are restrictions on the Second Amendment. In 1934, they passed a law which is still in effect, which means that there's no military-style weapons at all being manufactured in this country, which are automatic weapons. They are banned from civilian use. They are not used in crime. Some people still have them grandfathered in, and they're highly regulated, and they've never been used in any crime. So there are restrictions that goes on, and some states have high restrictions. I live in Washington, D.C. I can't get what's so-called assault weapons, so these rifles that have cosmetic changes. I can't get my gun had to be changed before I bought it to take out the 13-round mag, put a piece of metal in there to divide it so that it could only take 10 bullets. So there are regulations to the Second Amendment in existence. We had up to 10-year ban on certain cosmetic features and on these so-called high-capacity magazines. It was ineffective. It did not reduce crime. So any further regulation has nothing to do with crime. It has nothing to do with mass shootings. It has to do with a liberal philosophy of taking power away from people.
Well, I think it's definitely going to be a debate that's going to happen. I think that they're talking about the recommendations coming out on Tuesday of next week. We're talking with Emily Miller, who's senior editor for opinion over at the Washington Times. You can find her on Twitter at Emily Miller. Emily, before we let you go, real quick, give us 2 or 3 must-follows on Twitter outside of the Washington Times world. Who do you follow?
Well, I would say for those people who are following this gun debate, you should definitely follow the NRA, and I'd also follow NRA News, which is has their name but is a separate entity, and they have very interesting stories they put up, as well as the Second Amendment Foundation, which is the one that bankrolled the Heller decision and a lot of other big cases. And so it's NRA, and then it's at NRA News, and then the Second Amendment Foundation is at 2AFDN, so at 2AFDN, which stands for, obviously, Amendment.
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
Adam.